everyone, Solitary Witch Tracks Maria here. This is my video response to Jer, Chris, Michelle, and Annika. Now, the topic that was brought up is the idea of duality between the feminine and the masculine, and I can get my notes to keep my mind on track. But actually, this is one of the reasons why I stopped calling myself Wicca, and became more pagan, I guess you can say, because that's a more eclectic, like, umbrella term, because I had it sparked me to formulate my own thoughts and ideas within what I wanted in my spirituality, and so I kind of moved away from the concept of duality and began to believe in something called the Great Spirit, the Great Force, a genderless thing. It's not really like a deity, like maybe an essence, a genderless essence that lives in us all, lives in everyone and everything around us in the universe. It is all of us, and that's more of a pantheistic view. But because in my mind it makes sense, for me at least, that it's like something that started us all here is beyond us, and so that means for me beyond the confines of gender. But people, I think Chris said this, people need to break and categorize things down, and one way to do that is within gender, because we have genders, feminine, masculine, female, male genders. And so in my belief, these are how the goddess and the god and the deities came to be. They're concepts, or like they're different aspects and concepts of the Great Spirit that people have personified and worship and pray to. And to me, this doesn't make them any less real, because they're aspects of the Great Spirit. But that's just how I view things, and it just makes more sense to me that way, I guess, and that, because the whole duality thing, it just didn't really fit with me, because it's like black and white, and it didn't really work out for me that well after I started to do my own thinking and thought process and stuff like that. And you mentioned a book you read that talks about the feminine being cold, dark, and wet, which in a sense it makes sense, because as Chris mentioned, this caves are cold, dark, and wet in ancient times. In the tribal times, caves were considered places of worship, sacred places where life sprang forth from, and and people would go where life would get sucked into. Because a lot of cultures would believe the earth to be a feminine thing because of its ability to produce life. And that would make sense, because women have the ability to reproduce, but of course not with help from the males, but the baby would come out of vaginas. And that was before they knew that men would take a part in it. And so to them, the women would magically just pop babies out of their vaginas here and there, and they'd be like, oh, kind of thing. And so the caves were considered wombs of the earth, and so they were sacred places. And so the cold, dark, and wet wasn't necessarily viewed as something negative, which I think is something our later on society has put into these constructs of like dry, hot, and bright, and cold, dark, and wet as positive and negative things, because that wasn't necessarily so back then. It's more of a modern thing. Well, not less modern, but more of a closer to our time kind of thing, rather than back in the tribal eras. And so, but I don't believe, of course, that feminine things are just cold, dark, and wet. I mean, for me, per se, I prefer dry, hot, sunny, muggy stuff. Like, I prefer Filipino summers, which are muggy, hot, and the sun is obnoxiously bright, and you're just like, but I prefer that thing. So would that make me any less feminine? So I don't believe that masculine and feminine, if you were to go down that route, would just be confined to those things, because the world is not black and white in my view, and masculine and feminine are aspects of the Great Spirit, and so they have to mold together somehow to make this one giant essence, that is part of all of us. And so it's like tie-dye colors, how they all blend into nicely and make beautiful colors and things like that. That's how I view like masculine and feminine aspects. And that's how I kind of am able to still work with my deities, because my goddess is Hecate, and as we all know, she's not, the typical hearth mother, here, let me wipe your nose for you kind of goddess. She's like, you have some lessons to learn, and you may not like it. It's gonna be a tough road, but tough love, you know. She's like, whatever, you gotta do what what's best for you. Like, she's like, I know what's best for you. I'll make you do it whether you like it or not. And you're just like, yes, ma'am. And then Shiva, who is my patron deity, he isn't like, he's different because he has kind of like destructive aspects, but he's, it's weird because like when he, like in this mythology, he was a great warrior, you know, everything like that. But he got sick of people, sick of everyone, and so he was like, screw this, I'm gonna go in a cave and meditate, and no one's, and like he'd do that and he wouldn't fight or anything, and people would be like, you know, what the fuck. Oops, sorry my language, but he kind of shed those archetypes of the masculine of being a warrior and a fighter and things like that, and he went to a cave and meditated and became enlightened that way, but he still didn't want to fight when they needed him to face the demons, so they sent a woman down, but that's another story. Anyways. But I don't believe, personally, that duality doesn't work for me, and in that sense, you know, when like just the strict archetypes of male and female aspects, because I don't view the earth as strictly female or male. I view it as a genderless thing. And same thing I, you know, do with things of the earth, like rocks and the ocean and things like that. Well, yes, some things might seem more feminine because of their ability to give life, but that's the only thing that I see feminine about things, is the ability to whether it can like give birth or not. But I still don't like the ocean. Some people would say the ocean would tend to be something more feminine because, you know, it's like a womb, you know, but it's part of the earth, and the earth is genderless to me, and so is the ocean, even though it has more feminine aspects, you know, things like that. And I mean, the Greeks and the Romans had Poseidon and Neptune as the god of the ocean, and he was male, so so like I said, I think these constructs are really something recent put onto our society, especially when we became more of a patriarchal society. I felt like it, because I mean, look at yin and yang. Yin, the masculine's white, its colors represent, like, it's colorless as white, and it's, you know, all these bright is considered like represented the sun and wisdom and knowledge, things like that, and then the yang is the dark one, the black color, and it's considered like emotion, things like that. And by putting it in these white and black, it makes the male seem more positive than the female, when literally when one is neither positive nor negative, they're both just there. But it's a newer social construct to make by patriarchal society, you know, to kind of like put women down kind of thing, you know. And it's sad because it's a very damaging thought process, I think, you know, to view some things that are considered like feminine, like the caves and stuff like that, to be negative things when they're not. And I don't know if this helps or not. These are just my thoughts, my ramblings on it. And this is like one of the reasons why I moved from Wicca to just, you know, being a pagan witch, a spiritual person, and not really having a religion, because I can't put myself in those confines. I have to grow out of it. I've grown out of my confines and had to find something else for me. And so if this is something, like Chris said, if this is making you question things, you know, maybe you should look more into it. And yeah, like I'm with Annika, the whole concept of duality is just like, it's a construct, you know, we really make upon ourselves, not really something that's real. And of course I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, Michelle also has really good points about, you know, a lot of goddesses aren't just considered, you know, earth mothers and things like that, like Hecate, Durga, warrior, and Bast. Even though Bast is like a god, like they say she's a goddess of, you know, hearse and the watcher of watcher of children and women. However, she's like, to me, because I've worked with her for so long, she's a very sensual goddess, and she's like, own your sexuality, own your sex. So I'm just like, yeah. Okay, sorry, my camera died. But what was I saying? Bast, yes. she's like very own your sex kind of goddess. And so, like I said, I feel like these constructs that we typically think, or like some typically think, of women and men being like men being masculine, overbearing, and macho, and women being like, oh, you know, I watch the kids, I make the food of the house, and clean the house. It's a very recent, more modern, not modern, but like more towards our time in society, later on in society, rather than what we consider to be like the beginnings of society. And so it's a really unhealthy view of life and things. But I don't know, like if you're seriously questioning things, you know, there's nothing wrong with stepping outside the box and seeing what else is out there for you and seeing what else you believe, because you have to do what feels right to you. You can't stick yourself in something, you know, when it doesn't feel right, if that makes sense. And that, I mean, that's what happened to me. So I understand what you're going through, because I was Wiccan for a while, almost 6 years. No, not 6 years. 4 years? I consider myself Wiccan for 4 years, I think. I don't know, I lose track of these time. I lose track of how long I considered myself Wiccan. But it was for a while. And it wasn't until I got to college and I started thinking, and I remember sitting in the library and I had an epiphany. I was like, what if whoever created us, whatever it is, it doesn't have a gender, you know? But, I don't know, I hope this helps. I hope this helps. It's kind of rambly and disjointed. But, yeah. Pretty much a lot of what Michelle, Annika, and Chris said I, like, believe in, because, I mean, they all have very valid points in their videos. But I hope this helps. I love your videos. You're awesome. Keep them up. You're great. But I'm gonna go do some yoga and eat my hummus and veggies because I'm hungry and I just got off work. Blessed be. Namaste.